Other great cars with Mercedes engines. Today we're going to talk about some great cars that are not Mercedes that were powered by Mercedes engines, because this is a very, very common topic with other manufacturers, like, oh, which great cars have an LS engine or whatever. But we're going to talk a little bit today about Mercedes engines. Now, the first car we're not going to discuss in this video is the Pagani Zonta. The Pagani Zonta uses the Mercedes M120 V12, and it's probably all its finest AMG iterations. And Mercedes kept the M120 in production a lot longer just for Pagani. And one of the reasons that Pagani loved the M120 was because its rated horsepower was far below its actual potential horsepower. The M120 engine is capable of producing well over 580 horsepower. It is an absolute rocket ship. It'll run with most modern engines in its most advanced state tune while still providing a reliable driving experience. But the first car we're going to talk about today is the Bandante, or the Bandy from Brazil, which is a Toyota Land Cruiser. It's an early Land Cruiser, like a Series 40 or something like that. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong, but the Bandy uses the Mercedes OM314, and I think they use a couple of other big displacement Mercedes engines like an OM324, but the engine that was most popular in the Bandy was the 314, and this engine was a small four-cylinder diesel with direct injection that made about 100 horsepower, give or take. And it was a fantastic engine. It was very reliable. It was one of 3 Mercedes engines used in the Bandante. But today, these cars are highly sought after because of their durability and because of their reliable Mercedes-Benz powertrain. Now, these engines are not exactly smooth. They're not quiet. They're not rocket ship engines. What they are go forever if maintained, workhorse, sort of in between a tractor and a small truck kind of engine. So you don't get in these things and expect to do 80 miles an hour all day in total silence with air conditioning. But what they will do is, if you are working in the Brazilian jungle and you're like a bush doctor, you're somebody who, goes in to protect the rainforest, because that's what you do in Brazil, right? You can ford something like 3.5 feet of water. You can drive on all sorts of bad roads. The engine's fuel efficient, so it's not going to leave you stranded miles and miles from, like, the nearest uncontacted remote village tribe. The next vehicle we're going to talk about that uses a Mercedes engine is the Isdera Commendator and the Isdera Imperator. So these two guys were made by a German firm called Isdera, and the Isdera Imperator was also known as the BB Auto CW 311. And it used everything from an early M117 5-liter engine to an M119 engine that was tuned to produce a lot more power than the 330 horsepower it was originally rated at in the 500 SL. But these Imperators were extremely rare and today are highly sought after, and they're very beautiful. This is the successor to the C111. So the CW311 was supposed to replace the C111. They're just a very beautiful, macho-looking supercar with an unusual rounded nose. Now, the Commendator was supposed to come after that. It was supposed to use a I think it was supposed to use either an M119 or M120, but these cars were also very low production. I could be wrong because there's not a lot of information available about this. But there is also another car made that I didn't mention called the Isdera Spider. I think it had like a triple-digit numerical name, and I can't remember what that was, but it was a 2-door convertible Isdera Roadster, and in back because it was mid-engine. At a rear mid-engine, it had a 190E 16-valve engine. And I'm not sure how many of these are made either. Again, they're Isderas, so they're low production. But Isdera even entered the retro classic fray with a car that was supposed to look like a 540K, but was powered by a really smooth and reliable M103 engine. Shifting away from these two cars, from the SUV to the sports car to the more like light commercial sector, we're going to look at the Hanam Mag. And the Hanam Mag was Hanam Mag was a manufacturer of small trucks and industrial equipment. And so Mercedes-Benz actually bought out Hanam Mag. They owned Hanam Mag. They put their star in the grill. And the Hanam Mag was a little front-wheel drive van built in the late 60s and early 70s that used the Mercedes OM615 engine from the 220D. So again, this is a 55 horsepower, this is like a little 55 horsepower front-wheel drive van that was based on a DKW design that was sort of acquired when Mercedes bought DKW Audi before they sold it to Volkswagen, but they maintained the rights to these little vans. And they were sold in the United States occasionally as camper vans with a sink and a tiny little bed. You know, if you were like a single person or a couple that didn't care about personal space and you just wanted to camp and spend all your time outdoors, these were great little vans until the rust got to them, which was really unfortunate. But there are still a few floating around out there. I hope one day a market will arrive for these so that we could start restoring them, just like people do to Volkswagen buses. They look a lot like a Volkswagen bus, but in my opinion, they're way more reliable because they use Mercedes diesel power. And they're a little faster because they don't have a 35 horsepower horizontally opposed pre-war Volkswagen engine pushing them around like a 1950s or early 60s Volkswagen bus would. The last vehicle we're going to talk about that was a really amazing car with Mercedes-Benz power is the SsangYong. It's the SsangYong Corando and similar vehicles. So SsangYong is a Korean manufacturer, and they built this really usable, capable, inexpensive off-road SUV that was a very modern SUV that used the Mercedes OM601 engine. And other SsangYongs used different Mercedes engines that were made in Korea, hopefully to Mercedes-Benz standards. So you could get these at the 2.9 liter version of the OM602. I think there was even an OM603 variant, but the SsangYong model lineup heavily used Mercedes diesel engines. And even though they never came to the United States, they were in Lebanon. The gasoline versions were in Lebanon, which I think used some variant of a 102 or 103 engine. And even though they were Korean made, they were still pretty great. You know, a lot of Korean manufacturers used engines from other manufacturers, such as Mitsubishi or Mazda or General Motors. But the Mercedes SsangYong product was probably the best Korean product ever made. I've talked to people that have owned them, and they really are a step above many other Korean cars, except for maybe the immortal and totally reliable Hyundai Pony. Anyway, if you guys liked this video and found it informative, please like, share, and subscribe. And if there are any Mercedes vehicles that I didn't mention, Mercedes-Benz powered vehicles I didn't mention, tell the story of them below in the comments, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video. We'll see you guys in the future, and you know, enjoy driving your Mercedes. There are a lot of people that loved Mercedes-Benz power, even if they couldn't afford the cars.